I'm excited to get going here today. Thank you again for joining us. It's been a while since we've done a podcast. And for any one of our guests that doesn't know Dr. McGee, he trains lots of manufacturers, big manufacturers, associations. He's at NEMRA every year, coming to the Lighting Summit this year. He knows what he's talking about in terms of manufacturer sales. So we're excited to have him on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Curtis.
Yeah. So, and then today we want to get to valuable insights, right? For manufacturers, for rep firms. How do they sell more? And more specifically, we'd like to talk about, what you are seeing, Dr. McGee, in terms of AI is changing a lot of things. It's changing things faster in 2026 than it even did in 2025. I think some things stay constant. They don't change, right? Some things are changing very much, and those are things you should also pay. So, but both things are important to pay attention to, right? So, you're in this all day, you're training people all the time. I just really like to hear what you're seeing. What are people doing? What's working? What are some pitfalls? And then we can have a discussion.
Great question. A lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
I would encourage individuals, whether you're the business owner, you're in the executive suite, whether you are leading one of your business units, business silos, business enterprises, however you want to phrase it. If you are production, if you're distribution, if you're product development, if you are engineering, if you're sales is where a lot of it really starts and ends. If you can't sell the product, no one else really has a job. So how do you look at AI as one of our focal points of this conversation is critical. I would back up this bus a little bit, and I would encourage everyone looking at technology, looking at their human capital, and looking at AI to start by saying, what is OUR? What is our brand promise? I think a lot of times what's happening out there in the market space, again, we can pick on Mr. A and Mrs. AI because they're the new people on the block, but you can look at technology. You can look at what's the new product, and you can very quickly become so distracted by feeling you have to do X, Y, and Z that you may not realize part of what you're doing is violating your brand promise, or part of what you're doing is not enhancing your brand promise the way you're going about it. So I think, Curtis, I love the question and topic today, but I'd back everyone and say, what's our purpose? What's our mission? What's our values? What makes our proposition in the marketplace different than anyone else? Or are we just playing a commodity game and they can buy the same shiny object from me as they can someone else? If it's a zero-sum game, then AI needs to be used in the following ways: redundancies, processes, procedures, efficiencies. How do we use it to become more efficient, and how do we train it? We can talk more about that in a minute, but how do we train it to anticipate our needs, our actions? How do we train it to anticipate the market's needs, individual customers' needs, if it's a zero-sum game? Because then it's only going to come down to speed and efficiencies. Now, while all of that is probably important for anything else we say, I believe there's a lot more to it than just that. So what's our brand promise? Because that's going to give you some huge insights as to how to look to utilize it. Now, my whole positioning and everything I write, all of my coaching, advisory work, and leadership and sales programs is about human capital. I believe the one constant in this, and I'm glad you said that a little bit in your opening line, is the human beings. No matter how much technology you have in a business, at the end of the day, we've seen for 100 years since Henry Ford, there's still going to be people. In AI, no matter how we utilize it and leverage it, two things are important. Number one, AI is driven by human capital. We're the ones deciding what it is and how to use it. Now, once we train it, it might help us to raise our game. So I think one of the key elements we have to really look at is the human capital component. How are we using AI to free up our people, free up our human capital, give them more capacity to do the things that AI can't do or we don't want it to do? And then how do we leverage the two together? And there's a lot of ways to do that. So what are all of your labor-intense steps that you can remove the human equation if you can AI it? What are the redundancies in a business that just eats up a lot of time and energy and capital? Can AI replace it, make it more efficient, elevate it to the next level? How do you use AI to raise the bar on everything you're doing? So again, I think the shift in the marketplace to AI is critical. How do we, in our specific conversation here today of manufacturing, let's say, how do we use AI to free up our sales reps' time, to allow them to be more efficient with their time. Because again, just as I'm a big believer, the one common trait that all businesses have is going to be the human being. The people, Curtis, working for you don't work for me, and the people working for me don't work for you. And pretty much everything else I can get if you can get it, but we don't have the same people. But with that, the other constant is time. And no matter how you slice it, no matter how efficient or how smart or how rich you are, there's only 24 hours in a day. So how do we use AI to be us when we're not present? How can we use AI to elevate us to be more impactful when we're not around? So that one opening question we could dissect forever, but I'd start with, folks, what's your brand promise? And that will tell you how you're using technology to execute it. It's the same way you're going to approach AI.
Have you seen, it's a really great point, right? Yeah, and I think a lot of times we tend to focus on things that are changing as opposed to the things that stay constant, right? And those are just as important. And you don't have to share names, but have there been examples that you have seen of people that have done the brand promise, right, correctly versus those that maybe are faltering a little bit? Like, what do people look for to say, all right, I'm really getting this where I need it to be?
Great question. So I have a client that I've been working with it. When we started engaging with them, they were about $300 plus minus $1 million a year, manufacturing and distribution. And they worked through the agency rep space. And they're now north of $1 billion. In that timeline of working with them and seeing that growth, several key factors have had to take place. One, back to the word human capital. What's the team I have now, and are they capable of being a part of the team of the future? And if they're not, how do I skill them up, develop them up, train them up, give them the experiences? And then at the same time, at the same pace, how do we then onboard the talent of the future today? And in doing that, now how they use AI is they've used it to anticipate market needs because it can cull through the data of the computer system in a nanosecond that it takes the most seasoned employee a couple of minutes, I'll be nice, to figure it out. But for the rest of us, it's going to take us days, weeks, months, or years. And that's critically important. We're seeing a massive shift in a lot of businesses, but again, let's stay just in this space where you have a lot of people retiring. What I've seen in the last 10 years, and for our viewers here today, take you out of the equation, but think about the people you've seen that have been here for decades in this industry that have been retiring or have retired. We have seen, and we're still in that wave of a mass exodus of seasoned, tenured DNA leaving our businesses. And I think more so than we're ever going to see in the future. I think using technology and AI as an example, we're never going to see someone spend 30, 40, 50 years with one employer again. I just don't think that's going to happen in the quantity of what we're experiencing today. So now come back to AI and using it right or wrong. So how do you look at losing 5 or 6 Curtises from the company that you're the institutional gatekeeper, you're the institutional owner of all of that knowledge, and you can anticipate seasonality of the businesses or with certain clients and certain product streams? AI can now do that in a nanosecond, but it does come back to the old adage of data in, data out. If you put the wrong data in, it's going to AI a whole bunch of nightmare answers to you. But if you AI the right data in, the right data sourcing on it, we can talk more about that a little bit later, that I'm finding about 50% of everything AI does is better than I could ever come up with. And 50% of what AI is coming up with is massively incorrect when I look at it from the lens of where I'm a subject matter expert. So you have to have the right people involved with it in these early stages. So how they're doing it right because they can help guide actions before the actions take place. So that's your before. It can help you to be more efficient in the interactions with clients, with the histrionics of a client, with understanding where we're missing business, where we've lost business, where there's hidden business, and more so on the follow-up. It's much more robust on follow-up. Client relationships, and we talk a lot about that. Let's go back to those seasoned people that are leaving. We have now the next generation in a lot of these businesses, whether it's second or third or fourth. We have a lot of generational turnover in succession in businesses with leadership and ownership. And that too is going to impact how we look at things from both a buyer and a seller perspective. There's a lot of buyers that are, again, just as we're recording this today, you go on LinkedIn, that's your number one professional social media platform in the world, and people in different industries that are, I'm retiring after 30 years here, 30 years there, 30 years. I see it every day happening. as they leave, they're also taking with them, more often than not, sadly, the relationships. So AI can help you to aggregate data, can help you to understand the other person, again, if we have access to the right information. But I think it's the touch points before, during, and after to give everyone a map to your question. How can we quantitatively and quality connect with people before an interaction or relationship, during the interaction relationship, and after the interaction relationship, and keep them connected? It's the old Domino's Pizza app is an answer to this. And if people are not tracking on this one, welcome to the planet. You're about 20 years behind. But everyone does this now. Now, I don't know where it started, but we're going to give Domino's credit because they're the ones I first saw doing it. But now, even here in Houston where I live, and I order pizza from a local pizzeria, they've got their own version of the Domino app. As soon as the order's in, whether you called it or smoke signaled it or you missed it, however, you're getting a message that says, thank you. Here's what you just played. Here's where it is in the process. So again, think about manufacturing. How can you keep your customers connected with the process like the Domino's app? You can keep looking at it. So, okay, now it's going in the oven. It's in the oven. It's coming out of the oven. It's been assigned to distribution. Call the delivery person. It's en route. I can almost time it till when it's going to show up in my front door. And here's the person. And then afterwards, you can give them information. If you use Uber, that's all AI. Again, you get in an Uber or Lyft car and they're on the app. They're giving you opportunities to connect. Do you need help? Is there security issues? How's the driver? Is everything going great? Do you want to tip them? When you get out, then you can score them. All the data goes there. And I learned, hey, if I give them a pretty damn good tip, all of a sudden it's amazing how I get people to respond next time I need an Uber. It's like everyone's jumping on them because they have the analytics on me. It says, hey, this guy's a good person and he tips well. So AI really is a game changer, but you can't look at AI as if it's going to absolutely make or break you because there's a lot more in business than just the AI tool.
I like what you said. I think, there's a lot of discussion now around, some people call it taste, some people call it acumen. There's different words for it, but what you're describing really is, right, the AI can do a lot of stuff. It can synthesize information, it can synergize information, it can bring information, it can give you insights, all of these things. But then you as the operator, right, it's your job now to say, is this good or is this not? Like, AI is not going to make the judgment call on, is this good for my business? Or like the pizza app you're talking about, right? Like, who decided, like, well, what are the things that the customer cares about in this? Like, how fast is the pizza? How warm is the pizza? What's on the pizza? Like all these things, right? Or in the Uber example, there's an element of like both human judgment and human responsibility that AI can't, it's not going to do that. That's up to you to get the AI to do the thing that's actually going to move things forward. So how would you, again, if you've seen examples of this where, people are doing that right, they're encoding into the AI, like their own judgment, they're learning how to use AI, but also like, their judgment is the final call on what the AI does. And therefore it becomes an accelerator and not, to your point, just like producing slop that's going to totally mess you up.
Great question. So again, for the individual out there looking at AI, let's back this up a second. I'll answer that question, but let's give some framework. I look at the business economy post-COVID. So whether you're listening to this and COVID is just finished for you, which is impossible because I don't know how you can back this tape up a couple of years ago before we recorded it, but hit pop. AI is able to, in essence, fake through time continuums with some of the questions you can pose to it. Or we're talking about what's going to happen 10 years in the future. Again, AI can fake a time continuum and give you some insights to where it believes the market's going. So that's important because whether we're looking at the market through the lens of today, yesterday, or the future, the market falls into three distinct categories is what I'm seeing today. And it's not unique to any one business, industry, or geography, which that challenges how we've all looked at the business marketplace for the last 100 years. So there's three bands or three levels of business. And then we can talk about how we can then take AI and make it a persona of us being an individual or business. So you have three bands of business, one band of business. So it's really about even 1/3 of every marketplace. So it's not like 10% this and 80% something. It's really like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 of the business marketplace is absolutely doing so robust, they can't grab the money fast enough that's falling out of the air at them. They are absolutely in that business. So whether it's manufacturing, distribution, whatever it is, it all is about efficiencies to meet the marketplace opportunity so you don't lose some of that opportunity. And that's one of the ways you use AI in terms of keeping people updated where orders are, or making it easy for them to come into your ecosystem, or making it easy for them to see what the ecosystem is. So you could train your avatar bot, your AI bot, so it will modify its approach from Curtis is reaching out to someone versus Jeff McGee. So the other element is we have to train our AI voice as a business, as an individual, by getting it to understand your persona as best it can. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. We'll save that for another conversation. But if you train it to be reflective of you, then it can start to answer some of your questions as to how and when to reach out. So band number one, there's phenomenal business that's absolutely going gangbusters. So you've got to look at how you can better connect to the marketplace, which makes the case for AI in lots of different ways. Second band of business out there is a band of business where you see business looks like it's doing really well, but I used the duck metaphor. It looks like it's doing really well, but underwater, those feet are going a zillion miles an hour to make that stuff happen. In those places, maybe you don't have the luxury, you don't believe, to hire enough human beings to have the bandwidth to keep up with the people above you in that first band of business out there. That's where AI can make it a level playing field. AI can help you to become much more efficient by eliminating redundancies, dealing with processes, dealing with procedures, dealing with all of the repetition of different work. It can aggregate data. It can eliminate some of the jobs maybe you even have on payroll as they are today, but it may elevate that job for tomorrow. It may help you to see positions you need to start hiring that you never would have thought of before you started looking at this issue. Just like any kind of technology or robotics in a business. Before you thought about bringing them online, there's a whole lot of jobs you never would have thought of. But now if you have robotics in your organization, you have a whole new group of people on payroll you never thought of when it was, a year before that thought came up. Third band of business is the band of business that's working incredibly hard, and they're literally like 2 seconds from shutting the doors. So AI can actually help that last level to step up to now be competitive. It can take the competitive level up to be, in essence, the leaders of the pack. It can take the leaders of the pack up to even whatever the next fourth level is going to be. But in our global economy, in our national economy, and in our local economies, I see those three bands. And so AI is critically important as the next tool in your tool belt to help you become more efficient. First part of your question then. So part of how I see businesses using it smartly is what are the touch points? So here's an example. What are the touch points before, during, and after with client interactions? And how can we use AI to help us to increase the number of appropriate touch points? I have one client that they now connect with clients, which is why I use the Domino's Pizza app example. And they're in much more connectivity communication-wise with the clients, which in that element creates a stronger relationship, less friction, because if it's not a reality, this is going to be shipped by the 15th of next month, but it will be there by the 20th, and you can communicate that early on in the quote processing time, or the order processing time, or the manufacturing processing time, or the shipping processing time, then everyone can plan accordingly, and you have stronger relationships. And then afterwards, following up on, again, how we did. Again, think about AI. I just recently took my car into the shop for its 3 months check-in. It's scheduled there. AI, I know, is being used by, in essence, that car dealership, because I got an email touch point and a text touch point from 3 different people, not at the level of frustrating me yet as a customer. But I am highly confident that the name on those did not type it, did not send it. It was automated. And what's interesting is that 2 of those touch points I know were AI generated, because the last time I went in there, I was not a happy customer. And I sent them a polite email with bulleted points as to where their brand promise failed. And this new experience, I'm sure, was driven by someone aggregating that data. And I'm sure they didn't have a support staff person in the back remembering the email, tagging that in a database, pulling that up so that when mine came in, it was on the screen. If they're not using some sort of an automated system, AI, they're working way too hard. So a lot of ways we can be using it. And then as a reminder, again, if I train it to be Jeff McGee, and I train it by putting notes, back to your earlier question, into the database, if I'm calling on Curtis, what your likes and dislikes are, what your hobbies are, etc. The more I put in there, it can remind me of these things. So AI, I use AI every day in lots of places I never used to use it. And again, both in my media company, we use it, and in essence, in my talent development company, we use it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It really describes the essence of using not to replace the relationship, but to your point, to enhance that, right? Because again, the business that sent you those text messages didn't have the capacity to read and remember all of your emails and all your issues and all your questions and whatever, but the AI did. And somebody, the human designed that in such a way that it could give you a positive experience, right? Which is what we're trying to go for. So
Absolutely.
Right on the money. We have a lot of leaders of companies, CEOs that listen. For them, this is an issue not only I think of, how do I use AI? How do I, while keeping important things constant, how do I also use AI? But then how do I affect change throughout my company to do that, right? Are you seeing more, this is a top-down kind of driven approach, like the CEO's like, we're going to do this, everybody learn it? Or is this coming from the ranks in the trenches where it's like, this rep's like, hey, I'm using Claude and it's awesome. It does X, Y, Z. I'm going to share it with all my peers and it's going to, what do you see in work?
Great question. It is not being driven from the C-suite down as a rule of thumb right now. It's being driven by key stakeholders. Now, there may be a one-off C-suite member there, or whatever your organization's title, the people are right below your C-suite. So senior executives, senior business leader, again, SVPs, et cetera. I see that's where it's being embraced in their specific domain, and they have wins. They can take those wins and build upon those internally to whatever level they have authority, buying power, decision-making. And then when they have a body of wins, I see them taking it up to the next level, because now it's like they have in real time a case study proof of model that it's working.
Mm-hmm.
I see that probably as the first bolt of what's happening the most. Second, I do see people in the trenches, as you said, again, to whatever level is appropriate for them, using AI, again, on different work products, or to give them some different ways of looking at the work product that they might then have to shop upline for approval or authorizations or expenditures, et cetera. I see that's where a lot's happening right now. Now, within that, if I come back to the C-suite, I see a lot of CEOs are, as of the recording date of this program, so for our viewers, look at what the date is when this is posted, so you can put it into context. I see a lot of CEOs that are definitely leaning into those conversations. Hey, what's going on? What are you talking about? How are you using it? A lot of CEO to CEO peer groups that I'm aware of and work with, it definitely is top of conversation. How are you using it? So people are putting their toe in the water and trying to look at, hey, okay, wow, you're using it. Tell me how you're doing it. And if it makes sense, they're jumping in then. So I see that element. But right now, I think it's individual business stakeholders, like a CFO, maybe jumping in huge. The director, VP of, or chief revenue officer, chief lending officer for sales for an enterprise, they're jumping in big. Research people are jumping in big. That's where I see it anecdotally when I look across the United States, from manufacturing, distribution, agriculture, finance, aviation, different clients that I have in all those buckets. I'm not saying that it at this moment that the CEO is driving it. I'm not seeing that as a universal. Anecdotally, yeah, there's a lot of CEOs that are driving it, but where I see it as a person who owns an individual enterprise that has the ability to buy it, test it, deploy it, refine it, and buy more of it. That's what I see as the entry point for AI.
Got it. I think we've seen that as well. I've actually been surprised in my conversation, even with smaller rep firms, right? We were on a conversation the other day where one of the outside reps said, hey, do you guys connect to Claude? Like, does your software connect to Claude? And I was like, you use Claude? He's like, oh yeah, I use it all the time. Because most reps up to now, like, haven't mentioned that they're doing something like that. But I'm hearing that more and more where, this stuff is starting to be more ubiquitous. And you're right, like outside reps, managers, these people are starting to use it. And I think because, the ones that are curious and they're like, how do I keep up? How do I not lose my job? How do I become more efficient? AI is one of those technologies where it does require some creativity and some question asking and some testing to see, like, where is the limit? What can it do? What can it not do? And then you implement something useful. Right?
Absolutely. And that's kind of how I'm thinking. Again, just as I talk about economically, I see business falling into three bands. Those are crushing it, those that are making it happen but working their butt off, and then those are working hard just to survive. You could use that same analogy for AI in businesses. I think there are people that are all in right now. And it's what you just said. I think number two, The second band are people that are exploring it and they're curious. So it's kind of they're putting their toe in different ponds within their business, but they haven't said, okay, no, we need to make this universal where it's appropriate. And then you have number three, you got people that are resisting it. This just isn't for me. And again, the people that are saying this isn't for me, we have to pause on that for a second and not beat them up. Because that third demographic is an expected demographic to anything that's called change. Again, you and I are just a little bit too young, but I bet you if we were in a back room with this guy called Henry Ford and he was talking about using technology and manufacturing a line, we would probably go, happen. So it's always there. So again, you had, computers came out in the 80s, basically, and 90s as we know them today. But before the 90s, computers were only in huge corporations and buildings. No one had one. I don't know when the Texas Instrument TI-35 calculator came out, but if everyone looked that one up on Google, that would be your clue of the tipping point of technology today, because that was the calculator that the geeks and the rich kids all had in high school. And that was their introduction to technology. And then again, you had Steve Jobs and Apple computer for everyone who thinks that's always been around. No, that was brained also because that was the 1980s. And they said, wait a second, we're going to build the future marketplace several ways. And one was when they started sticking those Apple computers. One high school in the town had the computer and everyone stood in the hallway to wait to look at it, to touch it. But they made tomorrow's marketplace. So when you come back to AI, I think there's some people that are reluctant or resistant because they're not sure about it, or they think it's too tough or too hard for them, or they're afraid that it's going to replace them and they're going to be redundant and unemployed. And that's not true. Again, right now, AI cannot emote. It has no emotion ability. It can't anticipate like the human relationship allows you to anticipate. It can only anticipate based on how you've programmed it or taught it. It can't, in essence, really think intuitively beyond how you teach it to think intuitively. So there's a lot of elements right now. And again, you're more the techno person than I am, but there's a lot of faults that AI has that computer and technology has, just like the old database of a traditional CRM. Take cloud out of the room for a second. But again, if the CRM doesn't have all the right data in it, sales management can't go in it and do some diagnostic checking and pulling data together and say, hey, wait a minute, produce this report for me. If the sales team hasn't been putting the data in because they don't know the value of putting that data in, then you're going to produce the wrong report. And AI still needs the lens of a human being to hold it accountable and keep training it. And I think some people are making that mistake. They think that AI is, oh, wow, that was perfect. Let's just always lean on it. I think now to your question, I think business leaders can use AI. If you want to start to tip your toe in this pond, or if you're in it, you should be using AI. I'm writing a massive proposal for a national account purchase. I could run that through AI, ChatGPT, and just say, okay, can you clean this up to speak to, and then give it the prompts to speak to this kind of a business or this business, these people, and hit enter. Then look what it produces. If you don't like it, hit delete. But if you do like it, you may go, whoa, this would have taken us 10 hours of a lot of brainiacs in the room to wordsmith and clean this thing up. Or where is XYZ client going in the next 6 months? Again, it is a phenomenal tool, but that's the key word everyone should be underlining in their head. It's a tool. Just because you have a sledgehammer in your toolbox, it doesn't mean you use it all the time. It's a tool.
You're right. And with AI in particular, all it takes really is that first wow moment. And you're like, oh my gosh, this could now be used for this and this and this. But you're right, but not for this and this, right? Where are the limits? Where are the bounds? But where is it insanely effective, right? So this has been a great conversation, Dr. McGee. I know we're running out of time, but if you have any final advice or, and also how can people reach out to you? Who do you want to work with? If you close off with that.
I love it. So in the space we're talking about today, I spend a lot of time working with privately held and family held, again, manufacturing, distribution, rep firms. So again, you want to accelerate your team. You have goals that you don't necessarily want to share with everyone, but you need someone to give you some of the mental DNA on how to accelerate it, attain it. That's why people reach out to me. So again, we have a leadership institute, we have a sales institute. Everyone that goes through what we do can have immediate quantifiable success. So again, jeffreymcgee.com. It's my name. It's on the screen. So make sure you have the right spelling. You can email me at my name, jeffrey@jeffreymcgee.com. But I will end where we started. What is your brand promise? I think so many businesses forget that brand promise. Again, whether you're in the airline, you're in a fast food, you're in retail, you're in automotive, you're in a pub, whatever you are, look at the businesses that execute their brand promise so powerfully that people go out of the way to do two things. They become a PR agency behind your back about you, and they go out of the way to come back to you. And that's what everyone watching today needs to go back to. Does your brand promise compel everyone inside the organization to know what the bottom line is we need to do? Is everyone going in that direction? And how can we use AI anywhere, anytime to enhance that and accelerate that? That's where your win's going to be.
Perfect. Dr. B, as always, thank you so much for your time, hopping on the show. Our listeners out there, reach out to them if you're interested. And, we'll have you on again, I'm sure, as time goes on.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate your time.
What you do, Curtis.